Not every woman talks about what she truly feels after the breakup. Some act strong, some distract themselves, and some move like nothing ever touched them. But behind the smile, there's a pause, a space where the noise fades and the truth starts to echo. She might not tell her friends. She might not even admit it to herself, but the thoughts are there. In this video, we're going to explore what really goes through her mind after the breakup. What she won't say but can't shake. Whether she ended it or you did the story, doesn't end when the relationship does. Especially when you walk away with clarity, not chaos. Let's get into it. He's probably still waiting. Number one, he's probably still waiting. Right after the breakup, she assumes you're still emotionally hooked, that you're refreshing her profile, checking her last scene, maybe even typing and deleting messages you'll never send. She imagines you still lingering in the emotional hallway, not quite in her life, but not quite out of it either. Because for many women, the expectation is that the man will wait, that he'll keep a candle burning quietly, even after being left in the dark. And in fairness, that's often true. Many men stay emotionally anchored, replaying every moment, clinging to the hope that she'll change her mind. But a man grounded in Stoicism walks a different path. He understands that desire tied to uncertainty is a chain, and he refuses to be chained to what's no longer present. He knows that peace begins the moment he stops seeking answers from outside himself. So instead of waiting, he moves, not because he doesn't care, but because he finally does about himself. Imagine her scrolling through social media one quiet evening, half expecting to see your familiar presence, your name in the likes. Your story's vaguely directed at her. Your usual signals of attachment, but they're not there. And the silence isn't loud, it's solid. It's not passive, it's final. That's when the doubt creeps in, not the kind that's about missing you outright, but the kind that unsettles her ego. Is he really done? Has he really let go that easily? And the irony is, it wasn't easy. It took discipline. It took choosing discomfort now to avoid dragging out suffering later. That's the Stoic way, not to numb yourself, but to master your emotions without becoming their prisoner. You didn't disappear to prove a point. You didn't become distant to manipulate her. You just realized that your life can't stay paused for someone who pressed. Stop on their end. And that realization, the quiet, internal shift from holding on to letting go, is what separates you from the crowd. She may think you're still waiting, but you're not. You're rebuilding. You're no longer clinging to what left. You're walking with calm dignity toward what aligns with who you're becoming. That's what surprises her. Not that you're angry, not that you're trying to get her back, but that you're truly okay without needing her to validate your worth. That's not coldness, it's clarity. It's not revenge, it's self-respect. And it speaks louder than any message you could have sent. Number two, did he ever really care? Did he ever really care? Your calmness confuses her. She expected some visible pain, and now she wonders, did you even care? But here's the truth. Just because a man doesn't fall apart publicly doesn't mean he didn't feel deeply. Stoicism teaches you not to suppress your emotions, but to channel them inward where real strength lives. A Stoic man doesn't need to broadcast his heartbreak to prove it was real. He just chooses not to let it define him. After the breakup, she starts replaying everything in her mind. She thought you'd be devastated, maybe even try to win her back. When that doesn't happen, when you don't spiral, don't post cryptic quotes, don't chase or linger. Her mind fills the silence with questions. And the loudest one is this. Was it even real for him? That question doesn't come from peace. It comes from her own unease. Because when a man walks away with dignity instead of drama, it unsettles everything. She thought she understood about love and loss. She might scroll through her photos, see those moments you shared laughing, holding her, listening to her talk about her day like it mattered, and yet now you're not showing any trace of the hurt she assumed you'd wear on your sleeve. That shakes her more than any argument could, Because in her world, emotion is loud, but in your world, guided by Stoic discipline, emotion is internalized, not denied, not ignored, but refined into clarity. You're not heartless, you're just not ruled by your heartbreak. And maybe that's the part she never expected, that your strength wouldn't come from pretending you didn't care, but from having cared deeply and still choosing to let go without resentment. That kind of strength, it doesn't post stories, it doesn't seek revenge, it simply detaches with peace. So when she sits with that silence and thinks, did he ever really care? What she's really wrestling with is the weight of a man who chose self-respect over reaction. And in that stillness, she starts to feel what she didn't expect: doubt, regret, reflection. If you've ever been in this place where your peace is mistaken for indifference, know this. The Stoic path is not about looking cold. It's about knowing that your worth isn't proven through chaos, but through control. And the ones who underestimated that, they always think twice after the silence. And if any part of this message resonated with you, take a moment, tap that like button. Leave a comment and share your thoughts, or simply type. True strength doesn't need to prove itself, because every time a man chooses peace over performance, he steps deeper into his power. Now let's keep going, because what she begins to feel next reveals even more than she expected. Why isn't he chasing me? Number 3. Why isn't he chasing me? This one stings more than she'll admit. She thought the breakup would make you fight harder for her attention, that pulling away would spark something in you. A reaction, an emotional confession, maybe even a desperate attempt to prove your love. In her mind, your silence wasn't part of the plan. She expected texts, regret, a dramatic return. Something, but when that didn't happen, when you didn't chase, what she once found comforting about her control started to feel hollow. Because here's the thing, most people don't talk about. When a woman expects you to chase, it means she still believes she holds some emotional power over you. She believes that even in her absence, your world revolves around her, that you're stuck waiting, hoping. But when you don't show up the way she imagined, when you step back with calm, not chaos, everything shifts. She starts to ask herself questions she didn't expect to face. Did he stop caring? Is he seeing someone else? Was I never that important to him? But what's really happening is this. You stopped fighting for a place that didn't value you. And that decision doesn't just confuse her, it unsettles her. A Stoic man knows that his response after loss defines who he becomes. Not every battle deserves to be fought, especially not the kind that tries to win back someone who already walked away. So instead of reacting, you reflected. You didn't run after her. You returned to yourself. And from that quiet place of self-control and inner clarity, you chose peace over pursuit. You didn't abandon your emotions. You just stopped outsourcing your self-worth to someone else's approval. Maybe she'll scroll back through your messages late at night, wondering why they suddenly stopped. Maybe she'll post something vague online to see if you'll bite. Or maybe she'll even reach out just to test if that emotional tether is still there. But when a man truly lets go, not out of bitterness, but out of self-respect, that absence speaks for itself. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, it's just real. And that's the part she never planned for, because she thought the breakup would make her more powerful. But it only revealed how much of your power you were giving away before. Now you've reclaimed it. You're no longer chasing something that costs you your peace. You're no longer seeking closure from someone who had every chance to give it. Instead, you're walking in quiet strength, stoic, grounded, and unbothered. He looks different. Number 4, he looks different. She sees you online, maybe even in person. And there's something new about you. You're calmer, sharper, more focused. That's what happens when a man stops pouring into uncertainty and starts pouring into himself. The glow isn't bitterness, it's alignment. You didn't get bitter, you got better. And now she can't unsee it. At first, she may have assumed you'd crumble, that the breakup would throw you into chaos, that maybe you'd spiral to try to prove something, or chase validation. But the version of you she sees now, that version doesn't look like he's searching for closure. He looks like he found it on his own, and that's where it starts to mess with her perception. Because while she thought leaving would put her in control of the story, your evolution flipped the entire script. You're not just smiling in pictures, you're radiating. You move with purpose. Your posture is stronger. Your presence feels clearer. She can sense that you're no longer weighed down by unanswered questions or emotional loops, and that right there is what throws her off. Because emotional detachment with grace that's rare, it means you didn't let the situation define you. You let it refine you. It's in the little things. You're not posting for attention yet. You're getting it. You're not trying to be noticed, but somehow you stand out more than ever. You don't speak about the breakup yet. The way you carry yourself speaks volumes. That's the essence of Stoicism. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." In your case, the best response wasn't revenge at all. It was quiet, dignified growth. And let's be honest, there's something haunting about seeing someone you once thought you knew, someone who once poured their heart into you, now walking through life like they've never been more centered. It creates questions in her mind. Was I wrong about him? Did I overlook his value? Why does he seem even more attractive after I let him go? That's the beauty of a man who chooses transformation over turmoil. Instead of reaching out to fix what broke you, reached inward and rebuilt what matters, your sense of self. You stopped seeking answers from someone who left and started listening to the voice within that always knew what you deserved. The result isn't a version of you that needs to be seen by her. It's a version that can walk right past her and not flinch. So now when she looks at you, it's no longer about who you were, it's about who you became without her. That realization stays with her because your growth wasn't loud, but it was undeniable. And sometimes the strongest impression is the one made in silence. Maybe I was the problem. Number 5. Maybe I was the problem. When you walk away with grace and zero drama, she's left alone with her own patterns. The absence of your emotional reaction leaves space for reflection. And when there's nothing left to blame, the mirror starts speaking. That's when self-awareness creeps in, and she starts asking herself the hard questions. At first, it doesn't look like regret. It looks like distraction. She's out more, she's laughing louder, posting stories that say, "I'm good without you." But underneath that surface noise, there's a storm starting to form. Because the story she expected that you'd react, that you'd chase, that you'd fold under the weight of losing her, never happened. Instead, you became calm. You became steady. You didn't try to explain yourself. You didn't beg to be understood. You just moved on with dignity, and that shift doesn't go unnoticed, because now she has to sit with something unfamiliar. Your absence without blame, your distance without resentment. You see, a lot of people rely on conflict to feel relevant. They want your frustration, your anger, your confusion. It keeps them in control of the emotional narrative. But when you give none of that, when you remain grounded, respectful, and quiet in your departure, it takes away the illusion of power. She begins to remember not just who you were, but how you handled everything, how you kept your word, how you didn't throw her past in her face, how you held space even when she couldn't meet you there. And suddenly that memory no longer matches the story she told herself. She starts noticing the moments she dismissed your effort, the times she picked at your calmness thinking it was detachment when really it was discipline. The truth hits when you're no longer a character in her drama, but a mirror to her own behavior. This is where Stoicism quietly shines. You didn't stay emotionally available to prove a point. You didn't leave to teach her a lesson. You left because you realized you couldn't carry a relationship on your own. A Stoic man understands that walking away doesn't mean he's heartless. It means he refuses to abandon himself in the process of loving someone else. So yes, there comes a moment when she pauses and says, "Maybe I was the problem." Not because you forced that realization, but because your stillness left no other noise to hide behind. And that kind of reflection, that's the beginning of growth for her, and more importantly, for you. Was he always this strong? Number 6. Was he always this strong? She didn't see it at first. During the relationship, there were moments she thought you were detached, too calm, too composed, too quiet when things got tense. Maybe she thought you lacked passion because you didn't fight like others did. But after the breakup, that narrative starts to shift. She begins to remember the way you handled conflict, not with shouting or emotional storms, but with restraint with control. And now she wonders, was that strength always there and she just didn't recognize it? She scrolls past your recent pictures, hears things from mutual friends, or maybe just reflects in the quiet of her own space. Something about you feels different, yet deeply familiar. It's not that you've suddenly become strong, it's that your strength was always there, but she's only now seeing it clearly because it's no longer directed toward her. It's focused inward. You're not reacting to her anymore. You're not lingering in emotional limbo. You've stepped into your own center. And that presence, silent, composed. Steady speaks louder now than any words could. It hits her slowly, like looking back at an old photo and realizing something was there all along. You just didn't notice. She realizes you weren't trying to be the bigger person to look good. You were the bigger person. While she may have reacted emotionally, you responded intentionally. While she played emotional chess, you simply stepped off the board. And now, after the dust has settled, that difference doesn't go unnoticed. You're no longer a man she can provoke. No longer someone emotionally tied to her moods. You've become the kind of man who no longer needs permission to feel whole, and that quiet realization, it sticks with her, because now she knows your strength wasn't a reaction to the breakup. It was always there, calmly rooted beneath the surface, waiting for the moment when you'd stop bending and finally stand firm. That's what Stoicism teaches us. Not to suppress emotion, but to master it. And when you did that, you didn't just grow, you became undeniable. She sees that now, maybe too late, maybe just in time to learn something. But either way, the thought lingers in her mind. Was he always this strong? Or did I just never look close enough? He's not like other gays, number 7. He's not like other guys. She's had exes before. Most got reactive, some got desperate, but not you. You didn't collapse, you didn't chase, and that contrast, your steadiness starts to stand out because emotional control is rare, and your restraint, it lingers in her mind more than any words ever could. At first, she might not even realize it. She tells herself, you're just doing what everyone does, playing it cool, waiting for the right moment to come back. But days pass, and then weeks, and still nothing. No, I miss you. Texts, no long, emotional paragraphs, no random calls to check in. What she starts to realize is that your silence wasn't a tactic. It was a reflection of something deeper. You weren't playing a role, you were living a principle. Most men, when they feel rejected, let emotion run the show. They chase, they plead. They try to remind her of everything they did, everything they were. But you didn't hand her that power. You stood still. You accepted, and that kind of acceptance, that quiet inner strength becomes unforgettable in a world where so many seek external validation. There's a stoic discipline in the way you let things go without breaking. It's the philosophy of not clinging to what is no longer yours, of understanding that you can't control how someone feels about you, but you can control how you show up in the face of loss. And what you showed her without saying a word is that you know your worth, that you don't need to fight for a place in someone's life. If they can't see your value clearly, you're not detached because you don't care. You're grounded because you refuse to let someone else's indecision shake your foundation. Eventually, she starts comparing. Not because she's looking for a replacement, but because that quiet strength left an imprint. Other guys, they try to impress her. You didn't. You just lived in a way that made her stop and think. She remembers how you didn't explode in anger, how you didn't guilt trip her, how you let the breakup stand without begging for it to be undone. And in that clarity, in that unexpected maturity, you became different. Not louder, not flashier. Just unshakably, you. She might not tell anyone out loud, but it plays on her mind. He's not like the rest. And the more time passes, the more she realizes that men like you don't just move on. They evolve. You didn't stay frozen in time waiting for her return. You kept going. You grew. And now she's left wondering not just what you're doing, but who you're becoming. And that's what haunts her most, because when a man walks away, not out of pride, but out of peace, his absence becomes more meaningful than any attempt to come back ever could. That's what she thinks after the breakup. Not just that you're gone, but that you were never like the others to begin with. Did he ever feel anything? Number 8. Did he ever feel anything? It's a strange thought she has because you're not showing any of the typical signs. No emotional posts, no long dramatic texts, no reaching out to mutual friends. And so a part of her begins to wonder, was it ever real for him? Maybe he never cared, like she thought. Maybe he moved on before it ended. But that question doesn't come from clarity. It comes from confusion because the way you handled the breakup doesn't match what she's used to. She's seen men beg, lash out spiral. You didn't do any of that, and that's exactly what's messing with her now. But what she's really seeing isn't a lack of emotion. It's the presence of inner discipline, the kind of emotional self-mastery that doesn't scream, that doesn't post cryptic quotes or perform sadness for sympathy. That's the Stoic difference. You weren't cold. You were composed. You felt the sting, the loss, the disappointment, but you didn't let it own you. Instead of reacting, you chose reflection. Instead of crumbling, you recalibrated. There were nights you sat with the pain quietly, not because you didn't feel it, but because you respected it, because you understood that suffering handled with wisdom leads to strength, not self-destruction. You didn't push your emotions away. You gave them space, but you didn't give them control. And this is where most people get it wrong. They confuse stillness with apathy. They see silence and assume emptiness. But the Stoic man knows it's not what you show that defines you. It's what you carry with strength. You didn't need to explain your heartbreak. You let your actions speak. You focused on rebuilding, realigning, and regaining your peace. That's not indifference, that's evolution. Now she sits with her question, did he ever feel anything? And with every passing day, the answer becomes clearer. Not because you tell her, but because the weight of your absence says it all. You were the man who didn't fall apart to prove a point. You were the man who felt everything but didn't lose himself in the process. And the more she thinks about that, the more she realizes how rare that is. And that realization, it lingers because it challenges everything she thought she understood about men and emotions. You didn't just walk away, you walked forward. And that unsettles her more than any outburst ever could. So now I want you to reflect. Have you been mistaking emotional stillness for weakness? Or have you finally started to understand the strength it takes to stay centered? When your world feels off balance, drop a comment below and share your thoughts, or simply type, "Still waters run deep," because sometimes the strongest message you can send is the one you never have to explain. Let's keep going. Number 9. Why am I still thinking about him? About him, she moved on, or at least she tried. She did what people usually do after a breakup. Kept herself busy, stayed social, filled her days with distractions that helped mask the emptiness. Maybe she even convinced herself she was over you. But the strange part is this. You didn't do anything dramatic. You didn't beg for closure. You didn't chase answers. You didn't spiral into bitterness. And yet, here she is weeks or even months later, still wondering about you. Why? Because the way you handled the end, it didn't feel like an ending. It felt like a quiet beginning for you. You didn't leave behind chaos. You left behind calm. You didn't create confusion. You created contrast. And that contrast is what keeps echoing in her mind. While she expected resentment, you offered respect. While she assumed you'd react emotionally, you responded with discipline. That's what Stoicism teaches. A man doesn't let external events define his peace. He lets go without losing himself. She starts noticing things now. Little things like how someone new lacks depth in conversation, or how their attention feels more like a performance than a presence. She compares, though she won't admit it out loud. But the truth is, your energy set a bar, a quiet strength, a rare kind of groundedness that didn't try to prove anything, just existed. And now that she's seen it, she can't unsee it. This is what she thinks after the breakup. He didn't just leave me, he left an imprint. Because while others may have passed through her life like noise, you moved through it. Like still water, steady, undisturbed, and real. And that's what lingers. Not the things you said, but the man you were. A man who didn't chase what left but chose himself. A man who didn't react but reflected. A man who didn't try to be remembered but became unforgettable by staying rooted in who he was. She doesn't miss the old relationship. She misses the stability it gave her. And now every new connection feels a little less secure because you weren't just a boyfriend. You were a mirror, and through you, she glimpsed her own potential. That's why she still thinks about you, because you didn't just touch her life, you raised the standard for it. Number 10, I miss the way he made me feel. I miss the way he made me feel. Eventually, she realizes it wasn't just your attention she misses. It wasn't about the messages you sent or the things you did. It was about how she felt in your presence, understood, valued, safe. And that's not a feeling that just anyone can recreate because what you gave her wasn't surface level interest. It was a rare kind of emotional shelter, one that came from how you carried yourself, how you spoke without needing to raise your voice, how you made her feel like her emotions weren't. Too much like her presence wasn't a burden. She might have taken it for granted. When a man is calm and consistent, people assume he'll always be there. But she didn't see that your steadiness was a choice, a reflection of your inner world. You didn't need to prove your worth. Your actions spoke for themselves. And when that quiet, grounded energy disappears, its absence cuts deeper than she expected. Because the world is full of men who want attention, but very few who give peace. You didn't make her feel wanted just in romantic moments. You made her feel safe in who she was, even on the days she didn't feel lovable. That's why it sticks. It's not about nostalgia. It's about the emotional stability you brought into her life. And now in your absence, she starts to notice how chaotic everything feels, how exhausting it is to keep guessing where she stands with others. With you, she didn't have to wonder. You were clear, present, rooted. And that's a kind of emotional leadership most men haven't cultivated. That leadership, by the way, didn't come from dominance. It came from discipline, from restraint, from knowing that true strength isn't controlling a woman. It's making her feel so safe she never feels the need to control you. That's the Stoic way. A man anchored in values doesn't give love to gain power. He gives it because it's who he is. He offers stability. Not for applause, but because he knows that a peaceful heart never shouts. And now that she no longer feels that calm, she may try to distract herself. New conversations, more attention, a busy calendar. But none of it feels the same, because what she misses isn't noise, it's you. The way you moved with intention. The way you listened. Not just to her words, but to her silences. The way you made her feel like she didn't have to perform to be loved. That doesn't fade quickly because while you never begged to be remembered, your presence left a mark that time doesn't easily erase. And she may never say it out loud. But in her quiet moments, when she compares, when she reflects, when the masks fall away, she whispers it to herself. I miss the way he made me feel. So let me ask you, have you ever made someone feel that kind of peace, or maybe have you realized just how valuable your presence truly is? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear what part of this hit home for you. Or just type, it's not about noise, it's about presence. Let's keep this reflection going. He doesn't need me anymore. And that hurts. Number 11. He doesn't need me anymore. And that hurts. The hardest realization is this: you're not just gone, you've grown. You didn't disappear to prove a point. You simply stopped giving your energy where it wasn't being valued. And now you live without her. Not in bitterness, but in balance. That's what makes her pause, because the version of you that once waited no longer exists. You've become the man who doesn't just move on, he evolves. And that evolution, it shakes something in her because she remembers the man who showed up for her without hesitation, who made space for her even on the days she didn't do the same for you. At the time, it felt like that energy would never run out. But now she's staring at the reality she never expected. The man who once cared so much is no longer reachable in that way. You're not angry, you're not spiteful, you're just unavailable. See what really stings her isn't that you left, it's that you no longer need her to feel whole. And that's a powerful thing. A Stoic man doesn't rely on anyone else to define his peace. He understands that attachment without reciprocity leads to suffering. So he learns to let go, not with resentment, but with wisdom. And while she may still get attention from others, none of it feels the same, because attention is easy. Presence is rare. The kind of presence you offered, rooted, grounded, emotionally generous, left a mark. And when it's gone, no amount of surface-level validation can replace it. She might wonder what happened, why you're not reaching out, why you seem even more composed than before. But deep down, she knows you didn't stop loving carelessly. You started loving yourself more carefully. You chose peace over patterns. And in that quiet choice, you became someone she can't quite access anymore. That's the part she didn't expect. Not your absence, but your indifference to needing her approval again. And once a man reaches that level of growth, he doesn't look back. Because he finally understands his value isn't proven by who stays, but by who no longer has the power to shake him. So if you've reached that place, stay there. Stay grounded. Because that's not the end of your story, it's the beginning of your freedom. And now we've come full circle. After the breakup, she may have expected conclusion chaos, but what she witnessed instead was your calm, your stillness, your refusal to spiral, beg, or chase. And that contrast, that rare, unshakable presence, became the echo she couldn't ignore. You didn't just walk away from the relationship. You walked into a deeper version of yourself, one rooted in discipline, in reflection, and peace. And it's that version of you, the man who grew quietly without explanation, that now lives rentré in her thoughts. This is what she thinks after the breakup. Not just he's gone, but he changed. Not just he let go, but he outgrew me. And no matter how much time passes, that realization lingers because it wasn't loud, it was powerful, it wasn't reactive, it was stoic. So, if any of this spoke to you today, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment and share which moment hit home the most. Or simply type "growth speaks louder than words." And if you haven't already, go ahead and like this video. It helps us reach more men like you who are on their own path of quiet evolution. Make sure to check out the videos now on screen. They'll take you even deeper into this mindset. Because remember, healing doesn't mean noise. Sometimes the most powerful transformation is the one no one sees coming. Thanks for watching, and stay grounded.